Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Ignite Intimacy community, what's up? This is your host, Miss Laura Aisha, and I'm just realizing I'm sitting here. I've got a school behind my apartment building in Manhattan, and there's not as many kids that are out there on the weekdays, but there's some children in the background. So you may hear the vibrant yells and laughter of children as we're recording this episode. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I do. Kids, wow, bundle of energy, like to the max. It's really amazing. If you could bottle that up, oh my Lord, have mercy. So we're here with sex and tech lady. We got an entrepreneur on the line, a startup founder who is doing some really cool stuff with sex and technology. She's created an app called Juicebox, which I'm super excited to share with all of y'all. And yeah, Brianna Rader is it Rader or Rader?
It's Rader.
Rader. Okay, cool. Brianna Rader's on the line with us from San Francisco. Woo-hoo!
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, I'm so glad that you and I actually connected last year. I had met your girlfriend at a networking event in San Francisco, and she was like, oh, I know someone who's involved in this, sex world and technology and doing some really cool stuff. So you and I connected, and then it just wasn't quite the right time. So it was so great to see your name pop up in my inbox and be like, yeah, Brianna, wow, okay, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So we are going to dive into some really juicy topics here today, and we're going to be talking about your app, Juicebox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Super stoked to dive into that and share that with our audience. And then we want to talk about sex advice that you wish everyone knew, which I wish I knew too. So I want to know, what do you know? You probably know stuff I don't know, and I'm sure you know stuff that our audience doesn't know. So we're going to share all of that, and then we'll talk about sex and tech as well, and the future of sex, which is super exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like a great lineup.
So Brianna, give us your history. What kind of, who were you as a youth and a teenager and in your 20s that sort of guided you into this world of sex and technology? Bring us back.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm sure, as you all know, Tennessee is a more conservative area than San Francisco. So we did not have basic comprehensive sex ed in schools. It was very, very abstinence-based. And so that was kind of my context growing up. And then after that, when I got into college, I stayed in Tennessee. I went to the University of Tennessee, and they too didn't really have any sort of, a lot of college campuses have some sort of peer-to-peer or sex ed programs, something like that. But my campus didn't have anything at the time. And so I founded a local small organization in Tennessee that provided this kind of sex ed comprehensive service to college students, but it was for adults. So it included conversations about pleasure, consent, communication, way beyond just condoms and birth control. And it was seen as very controversial in the state of Tennessee. Actually, the state got involved because it was a public university. My organization was defunded, and the state passed a resolution legally condemning me and the organization, and it was all over the news. I was on the Bill O'Reilly show. It was kind of a crazy time there for a couple of years.
That's amazing. I mean, you're doing something powerful when the government gets involved.
Right. Yeah, it was.
Like when they're trying to shut you down, you're like, oh, I've really hit a nerve here.
Yeah, I mean, this was 6 years ago, and the organization is still operating, and they still put on events every year, but still the state's very upset about it all this time
Good.
later.
Yeah, good. That's awesome. I mean, I love that. That's like change, right? That's like getting into the nitty gritty, getting up underneath the stuckness that's there and that's where the real conversation transformation starts to happen in my humble opinion. So good on you, girl. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was my first foray into the this world of sex, relationships, sex education, all of that. And it was really inspiring. I met so many wonderful coaches that we hired for our workshops. And it really changed my life in a lot of ways. And I saw how meaningful it was to the students that attended our events. But after that, I graduated, moved to San Francisco. I got my master's in global health at UCSF. And then after that, stayed in San Francisco and started working on Juicebox.
That's so cool. So, how many years were between when you left Tennessee and when you started working on Juicebox?
Probably about two. I
Awesome.
mean, it was always in the back of my head and always thinking about it, but seriously working on it 2 years.
Amazing. So, yeah, so basically you started this organization in Tennessee and was it like, God, this would be a great app. Like, is that kind of like what you were thinking as you were building the organization?
No, it was more like I kind of woke up and realized how hard it was to make change at the policy and governmental level. And then I thought, how can you solve this problem in another way? Because changing the government's mind and public schools' minds is going to be a decade plus long battle. And I was trying to figure out, oh, what can you do besides that? And technology came to mind because technology really allows everyone to access it.
Absolutely. Like I mean, there can be a barrier to entry. However, the barrier is much lower than if, for example, your organization in Tennessee. It's like with technology, anyone with a phone who lives in a country that doesn't control what can be downloaded and viewed has access to it.
Right, exactly. And so I think I just got kind of jaded with my work in Tennessee. And I was always passionate about the topic, but I was trying to figure out what venue. Does that mean medical school? Does that mean working with state governments? And I just got really pumped about tech because I realized that you can impact a ton of people at once instead of one patient at a time.
Yeah.
Or working on a policy for a decade.
Yeah, and we're like going for global transformation here. So, might as well like support as many people as possible, and instead of the one-off model.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And so, like, what was the journey to creating Juicebox? Because launching any type of business is a daunting process. And an app, I mean, you think of it in just layers, like of the layers and layers of things that you have to, identify and create, and the support and from all the people who are going to build the app to all the people who are actually, because your app. So, okay, let's start with what the app is. Like, what is Juicebox?
Yeah. With Juicebox, we connect people one-on-one with sex, dating, and relationship coaches. So this is all done anonymously via the app. You're connected one-on-one, and it's a hand-selected process. So we connect you to a coach that matches your needs and the kind of coach you're looking for. And so our users work with our coaches on issues ranging from dating, like navigating online dating, tired of being single, to marital issues, to women that have never had an orgasm before, to men with erectile issues, or even intimacy after assault, cheating, arguing, communication, all of that. You can imagine anything.
That's awesome. And so basically you have access to information and support via the app.
Yeah, it's just like, pretty similar to, if you can imagine, a therapist in your pocket. These coaches are in your pocket at all times. You'll always get a reply within 24 hours, and you can talk to them as much as you want and stay anonymous.
That's so cool. So, like, talk me through a potential scenario, like a use case.
Yeah, totally. And I'll add that the coaching feature is the core feature of the app,
Okay.
but we do have other features in the app that are completely free. So it's free to download the app. And then we have a forum called Spill, which is where people spill their stories and experiences anonymously about anything related to relationships and sex. And people can upvote them with this little condom icon that grows when you upvote it, and then reply on the stories and engage there. And then we also have another forum called Snoop, and this is where it's more traditional Q&A, and you can snoop on other people's questions and see what they're asking and see the answers from our coaches, because we answer a certain number of those for free.
That's cool. And so let's say give us a use case.
Totally. So for instance, if you're a 40-year-old guy who is dating, wants help with the dating scene, online dating, he downloads the app. He goes through a very simple onboarding process where you answer questions about your dating satisfaction, your sexual satisfaction, your gender, your orientation, those sorts of questions. And it's all on a spectrum, and you just use the slider. Inclusivity is super important for us. And after the onboarding, you start talking to our matching expert. And that's where you just engage with a couple of messages, explain, why you came to Juicebox today. So you could explain it's about dating. And then Caitlin, who is the matching expert, will pair him with an appropriate coach. And then from there, you're set to talk to the coach as much as you'd like. And also we have resources, and these are interactive guides, exercises, and scripts that the coach will attach to your chat to supplement the coaching. And these are cool because they're interactive. So we have one, let's say you're struggling with dating, you want to communicate something to your partner, but you're not really sure how to do it. So we would probably give you the difficult conversations script, and we would attach that to your chat. And what this is great for is you can write down exactly how you're feeling, what you want to say, and the script automatically reorganizes your language into an organized script that you could essentially copy and paste to your partner, or at least just read through before you have that difficult conversation. So that's just an example.
I love that. Because that's something that I know I get hung up on, and sometimes I just can totally lose my power and lose my juiciness, and I don't lose it. It's a story, it's not really happening. It's just I freeze and I'm like, oh, what am I going to say? And, how do I say it in a way that is going to keep the energy open, keep the conversation open instead of shutting it down? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And okay, so that is a really fascinating application. I'm I don't know if it would bore our community or not, but I'm God, I want to know how that works. So my ever curious Gemini mind. So, okay, so that's amazing. And then what about what are some of I know you just launched the app that's more targeted towards adults, and
yeah, I can tell you a little bit about our breakdown of use cases, because I think it's really interesting. We have slightly more men than women, which is not what I really anticipated, but it's about 30% of men who have pleasure their girlfriends, their wives, or they're struggling with erectile issues. And then we have another 30% of men who are single and have issues around dating. And then we have about 15% women who have issues with dating as well. And then the other users are people with relationship issues, 15%, arguing, cheating, differing desire levels. And then our smallest demographic is women who have issues around pleasure, like haven't had an orgasm don't enjoy sex, and that's around 7%. So that's
Wow.
our current use cases.
Okay, so I just love that you're seeing more men using the app and that was a shock to you.
Yeah, I just was surprised. I think it's because men have fewer channels to talk about these issues. With a lot of women are comfortable talking to their best friends about these issues, but men less so. And so I think they're excited for a resource. But the flip side is I worry that women don't prioritize this part of their lives as much as men do. So if a
Mm.
woman does an orgasm, they're like, oh, well, guess I didn't orgasm.
Yeah,
But if a
yeah,
man,
yeah.
yeah, if a man does an orgasm, he's looking for help, you
Yeah, he's
know?
like, what the hell? What happened there? Like, or if, he can't get it up or whatever. Because I know that's a big issue, and it has a lot to do with so many different things. There's not like just like one reason why men can't get an erection, and of all different ages too,
Yeah,
so
exactly. I
it's
mean, the issue's actually been rising in young men, and popping Viagra is not always the best solution.
yeah, or I can imagine it's not like the healthiest solution.
Right.
It's like,
Yes.
I actually featured Danny Katz on the podcast last year. I don't know what episode it was, but we talk a lot about erectile dysfunction in young men,
Hmm.
and that there's a rise in ED with young men, and it could have something to do with the amount of pornography that is being consumed by younger men, and both the way that they are pleasuring themselves when watching pornography, and also just having such a different experience when someone is actually physically there in the flesh.
Right, exactly.
So, okay, so let's talk about the sex advice you wish everyone knew, because I want in on what you know that I don't know, and I know our community does too.
Well, I think honestly, it's really important to go back to the basics around communication. I think people hear it all the time, but what I've really learned through my workshops that I did in college and Juicebox is that really I've just been trying to get people to start talking about sex. And that's why this podcast is great and resources like this is great, because we don't get a lot of practice doing that. We're not allowed to talk about it at school, at work, with our family, or it's seen as like awkward or shameful. And so what's scary is that we never get this practice talking about sex, and then we're expected to just be amazing at it. And some people even struggle to talk about it in the moment with their partners. And so I think that's really what Juicebox is about, is giving people a space to practice that communication and getting used to talking about it and it feeling normal. Because when you read a blog or listen to a radio show, I think that helps normalize it some, but then it's still really passive. And so with Juicebox, you can be like a more active practitioner of this. And so I think communication is just my number one piece of advice, is that you absolutely have to be willing to have these intimate conversations with your partner,
Mm-hmm.
with your date, even if it's someone you don't know well yet. I mean, if you can't say even really simple instructions in the moment, like harder or slower, or, oh, that doesn't feel quite right. I know a lot of women struggle saying those things in the moment, but it's really crucial. I think that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, well, and I would say that men struggle with it too, and it's like,
Mhm.
and just like asking, and it's so interesting. Gosh, this conversation is just all over the place. First of all, we've talked about communication a lot on Ignite Intimacy. We talk about it all the time because it's a big deal and it's so important. And I mean, communication from just an initial conversation. We've got a podcast episode that by the time this airs, it will have already aired. Rachel Maddox, great conversation. She really goes in and gives us some super juicy tips on how to have conversations and how to
Mhm.
have like the before foreplay conversation, and just
Mhm.
like getting related, and like what do you love and what do you hate and what do you wish someone's done that they've never done before? And, just having the conversation before any clothes come off or things get really intimate sexually, physically. And so being courageous and opening that up, and there was
exactly.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Because if you can't do the communication piece, then it really doesn't matter what techniques you know or what lube you have or what toys you have. Like it's just all of that's important too, but it's the secondary.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like, it's like you could have like the whole Adobe suite and the super sweet, like $5,000 MacBook Pro. And like, but if you don't have the skills, like you're not going to really design anything fab, right?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And so this conversation came up a couple of times this week, and I was speaking with a man who, I've had a couple of experiences lately, and that, gosh, have just been so interesting. And it was like one guy that I was like, I'm into him, and he just rushed the whole sexual conversation, like really fast, like it felt intrusive. And I was so surprised by that. It's like, wow, okay, well, that's one way to do it, I guess. And I was, I did say something about it. And one of the things that I took responsibility for is like, there were things about that conversation that I was not comfortable with, and I didn't say anything to you about that. And like, that doesn't work. No. It's like we see all this all over the Me Too movement where it's like, well, where was the woman and saying like, oh, no, this doesn't work and I'm leaving,
Yeah. I mean, these things are very, very hard because media around us makes us feel like sex is everywhere and we're just all supposed to be naturally talented and born with the skills and knowledge. But the reality is that this is something that has to be learned, just like all other skills in life. But unfortunately, when we're consuming the media, it makes us feel like everyone's already awesome at it. So then we even feel weirder.
Or more bad, like about like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be a Don Juan and I'm like, John Doe, like.
Right.
So, so then I had this other man come into the realms, and he was like totally opposite. Like he was like all about the slowness and like the like over time, like building over time. And I actually mostly prefer that. I'm like really into anticipation and building that and like really get like moving get that energy moving, and building, and in that process you get to know someone and you get more comfortable just having those conversations because you haven't totally gone all in yet, right? And
I think that's important. That's definitely what I prefer too.
Yeah. And so that was amazing. And then I had this other man come into this space, and with him, it was like this experience of like, and these are all men that I have not been physical with yet. Right. Like, like there's been no physical, it's just the exploration of getting to know someone and being bold and having these conversations, which starting this podcast has really supported me in having more of these conversations. And our listeners who've been checking in through the last 20 months since we launched the podcast, I'm sure that maybe you're picking up on like there's more ease in my ability to actually open up and express about certain things about my own sexuality and my own life, which is something that I was really scared to bring into the mix. Cause like, ooh, what if someone I'm dating listens to this and they're like, oh, wait, she's into that? I don't want to date her anymore. Like, or what if, who knows? Anyways, all the what ifs, who cares? It's like, I'm here, So this other man came into the realms, and it was he was like a blend of the two. Like he was sort of like sitting like beautifully in the middle of the two experiences with the other, the experiences I
Mm-hmm.
had with the other two men. And it was like, wow, like, and just like having this opportunity to be like fully seen and received by someone. And I'm experimenting with not kissing a man immediately, like,
Mm.
and just being in that that space of just like play and like, just like touching like softly. And we had this beautiful, beautiful sacred experience the other night just in the street. And we just embraced for the longest time. And it was like we were making out without kissing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so amazing. And yeah, it was just like, wow, like there can be so much there with just an embrace and permission to like dance in that moment with that without any liquid exchange.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think people skip a lot of this because they're anxious, they feel a little scared in the moment and they're like, let's just get to it, let's get to it. But if you really pause, it's a much better experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so after many, many years of rushing and jumping in and heartbreak and heartache and disappointment and disappearance and, all this stuff, now that I'm, in my 40s, I'm discovering this. Like really over the last couple of years, I'm just really just discovering like this newness and that it's like, anyone that is not hearing me, that is wants to rush into things and I'm not ready, like they're not my people.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
And what I know for certain now, more than I've ever known it, is that there's literally like a never ending queue. So it's like we live in a dynamic world, and with social media and social dating and all of this, it's like there's literally like, okay, so like the more flexible I am with just like excusing people from my world, like, okay, goodbye, and who's coming in next, the more open I am to just like the more aligned like experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. And I think, well, besides the communication piece, which I think people sometimes roll their eyes when they hear that because they hear it all the time, but
Mm.
it is really important. But other than that, I think what I like to tell people is I meet a lot of people that don't own lube or toys. And I
Mm.
feel like when I talk to them about it, they say things like, "Oh, I don't need it." Like or I enjoy my sex life. Like they feel like toys and lube are only used if there's something like lacking in your own body.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I really hate that assumption because to me, these are just like basic items in your sex toolkit, and they're only there to enhance, not take away from what you already have. And so I always tell people, please go out and try lube, try different flavors, try simple sex toys. It
Mm.
does not take away from what you're already doing.
Oh, okay. Thank you, because you're speaking to one of them. Like I've had a few toys. I am really like I don't. Well, actually, I do have some lube that I've gotten in like some gift bags and whatever, and it remains unused. Like it's like somewhere away, and you're pointing to something that has been alive for me, but sort of in the background, right? Like we all have like these things that are like alive for us. We know they're there, but we're just sort of, they're like they're sort of subconscious and conscious. So like I call it like in the background, and
Hmm.
so this is something that's been there for me. And it's almost like, oh, it's too much, like, and yeah, like almost making myself separate, like, or better than like, I don't need that, and it's like I've had a couple of women share with me about some new toys that they've been experimenting with. And I'm like, oh my goddess, I want to try that out, you know? So like there's like a We Vibe toy that my friend was
Mm-hmm.
telling me about where like your partner or lover could have like has a remote or something and you could be traveling or like across the city or whatever and they could totally be pleasuring you with this We Vibe when you're not with them.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many toys out there. Sometimes it is intimidating to navigate because there's so many options. A lot of what we do on Juicebox is coaches kind of guiding people through that process. And
Mm.
because I mean, there's hundreds of options out there, but there's so much cool stuff.
Well, so do you have, oh, and then there was this other one, the Satisfier. Have you heard that? Heard of
Is
that?
that's the one that is a suction?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I just met with this woman who is working with the company. She's here and she has this whole haptic process that she does for people with, you know, the human body. And I'm actually going to feature her on the podcast as well because she's doing some really cool stuff. She has a foundation in Tantra and she was telling me about this Satisfier and she was like, oh my goodness gracious, like this thing is amazing. And I don't know anything about it. However, I was like, with the little bit that she shared, I was like, I want one, like now. Like,
Right.
have you used it or do you know about it?
I know about it. I haven't used it yet.
Okay.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it sounds super fun. So we'll put some links to those toys in the show notes. But so tell us, do you recommend any specific lubes or toys that we would want to share with our community?
I guess I would recommend that every woman should own a vibrator that they're comfortable using in the moment with their partner, not just a solo toy. And then the other thing I would recommend is having water-based lube and silicone-based lube because there's different situations when you would use each. There's
Of
Uber
course.
Lube, Uber Lube, which is an awesome brand, Sliquid, which is an awesome brand, and they have great flavors. Sliquid has a pina colada flavor that I like a lot.
Okay, so you said Uber Lube and what was the other one?
Sliquid.
Sliquid. Okay, cool. Pina colada. Awesome. And then what about toys?
I don't know if I would call out like a very specific one. I would say bullet vibrator should be in every woman and man's toolkit. If you're sleeping with women, everyone should have a bullet vibrator to pull out when needed. And then I guess some other cool stuff maybe is the Eva, which the Eva is a vibrator that a woman wears while being penetrated. And it like sits in between the lips of your vulva.
Oh, yes. That sounds amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've got a couple of suggestions. We'll have links to those products in the show notes. And what would be like one more piece of sex advice that you just Oh, okay. I want to know one more piece of sex advice that you wish everyone knew. And just one more thing on the communication tip is that, like, for me, it's like if you don't talk to me well, like if you like are not talking to me, I feel so arrogant. Okay, I'm going to shift the energy of how I'm sharing this. I love it when people talk to me and like tell me like how beautiful I am or how it feels to touch my body or like that they want me, you know, like there's something so engaging about that. It's like, you know, just they're like bringing you into their world of the experience of you. And I will just keep talking about this because a lot of people are silent when they're engaging with someone intimately and sexually. And I just want to encourage all of us to just speak more.
Yeah, it's important. I think that and also slowness. I think you can never go
Slowness.
too slow.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. Okay. And then like what's one more piece of sex advice that you would like to share?
I think I would add just a fact. Maybe it's not advice, but a lot of people don't understand that the clitoris is actually also inside the woman's body. It's not just the little
Mm,
tip that you see on the external. And so I think men should remember that. And actually, if you compare the size of the clitoris and the penis, it's not that different. Just the clitoris is mostly internal.
yes. Yes. So check out some anatomy, folks. Google it. It's true. It's all up, all around in there. And it's not just about the clitoris. So, or it's not just about the head.
Yeah,
Right. So
right.
it's like, it's like this whole beautiful being. And I'm thinking about, oh, what's the woman's name who did that whole, is it Clitocracy project?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Clitoracy.
Cliteracy. Yeah. Clitocracy. Maybe we need some clitocracy in
That
the
sounds cool.
world. The new government.
Yeah.
But it won't be a government. It'll have a totally like expansive name. And yeah, so cliteracy is something that everyone should check out. This woman, I'm not thinking of her name right now, but she did this whole project about cliteracy, and she has like these sculptures of the clitoris. She's an artist, and she's amazing. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And then let's just chat for a minute about sex and technology and like the future of sex. What are you seeing now that you're immersed in this industry?
Well, I think one interesting thing that I'll note is when I first started working on Juicebox in 2016, I think the vibe was a bit different when I would talk to investors and other entrepreneurs about what I was doing. There was more hesitancy, there was less funding going into the space. And now in 2018, when I talk about it, I find there's a slightly warmer response. I'm not saying that it's changed completely, but it is warmer. And I think in some ways I was too early in 2016. And I think I'm not going to point it to just one thing. I think the Me Too conversation had an impact, though. And I think investors are coming around that this is an interesting space. It is important. And there are more entrepreneurs in this space than there were 2 years ago. And that's very, very exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it just, what I'm getting is like, good on you for making moves in this space. And then I'm also just thinking about the ideas that I have around this podcast and some different product and services to build out around sex and dating and intimacy and this whole world of that's such a huge part of the human experience, and so
I mean, when I was building Juicebox, I was thinking it's kind of crazy that if you have problems in your sex life or sex questions or relationship and you need to talk to someone about it, there's nowhere you can go to get a response within 24 hours. And that's something Juicebox is really committed to is we don't put you in a month-long queue like an email inbox, or you don't have to wait a week to set up an appointment or something like that. Like we always promise that 24-hour response, and we're like the only place that allows you to do that.
And do you partner with Planned Parenthood or any other organizations?
No, this is for coaches. So this is not nurses and doctors. These are people that some are licensed therapists, some are certified coaches, and it's more about the actual sexual pleasure and the dating and the relationship piece, not so much the actual health piece.
Okay. And then so if people have a health concern, can they, like, if they're using your app and they have a health concern, is there something that you suggest via the app? If you like, do you have it set up so that if someone has a health concern, something automatic appears that says like, or do you not touch on that at all?
Oh, I mean, of course we can cover basic concerns around birth control and STDs. But if there's actually something that needs to be looked at, we would just recommend setting up an appointment at your doctor's office.
Awesome. Brianna, this has been so great.
And I'm excited to share a discount code with your listeners.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so talk to us about that. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, well, Juicebox is really affordable in the first place. We made it as affordable as possible. It's only $24 per week to have unlimited access to a personalized coach. I know when people hear about coaching or counseling, they often think, oh God, it's going to be over $150 an hour. I can't afford that. But that's really not the case with Juicebox. And with the promo code that we're giving the Ignite listeners, we're actually going to give 60% off their first week. So that means it's only $10 to get started. And the promo code is Ignite. So if you download the app and put in the code Ignite, then you'll get 60% off your first week.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So Ignite Intimacy listeners, you heard it here. There is a promo code. It'll be in the show notes. It is Ignite, and you will get 60% off of your first week using Juicebox. So you can check out Juicebox is it both Google and Apple app stores, or?
Juicebox is only on the App Store right now, only for iPhones.
Got it. Okay. So iPhone users, Juicebox on the App Store, check it out. And for our Android family and friends out there, are you planning on an Android version at this point or not yet?
Yeah, coming soon. Won't be this year, probably early next year.
Great. Okay, cool. So, this has been wonderful. Brianna, thank you so much. You can find out more at juiceboxit.com and then go to the App Store for all of the iPhone users out there, and you can find Juicebox on the App Store. Remember to use Ignite as the promo code. That'll be in the show notes, and then we'll also have links to some of the lubes and the, toys mentioned, the clitocracy or the Cliteracy Project. Wow, I'm really getting that clitocracy out there. Have to explore that more. And Brianna, just thank you so much for being such a bold stand in the world for better sex education, connection, to get support around sex and sexuality and intimacy. It's super powerful what you're creating.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So Ignite Intimacy community, you heard it here. Check out Juicebox. And if you have any questions, you want to holler at us or Brianna, feel free to email us hello@igniteintimacy.com. Check out Juicebox, App Store, juiceboxit.com. And we love y'all. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And just stay blessed, would ya? And we'll see ya on the next one. Ciao for now. Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.